Have you ever loved someone so much that you forgot to love yourself? Have you ever looked in the mirror after months or years of giving everything to a relationship and wondered where you went? If you have, this message is for you. And if you haven't experienced this yet, stay with me, because what I'm about to share might just save you from that heartbreak before it ever begins. Here's something I want you to really hear. Love is beautiful. Love is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience. It can heal us. It can inspire us. It can make us feel alive in ways nothing else can. But here's what nobody tells you when you're growing up. Love, real love, was never meant to cost you yourself. And yet, so many women, intelligent, kind, capable women, wake up one day and realize they've slowly traded pieces of who they are for the sake of keeping someone else happy. They've shrunk. They've silenced themselves. They've put their dreams on pause. They've swallowed words that needed to be spoken. They've accepted treatment that deep down they knew wasn't right. Why does this happen? It happens because somewhere along the way many of us were taught that being a good woman means being endlessly giving, endlessly understanding, endlessly flexible. We were taught that love means sacrifice, and sacrifice means losing parts of yourself. But here's the truth that took me years to understand. A high-value woman doesn't sacrifice herself. She invests in herself. And from that investment, she has so much more to give to her partner, to her children, to her work, to her community. But she never gives from an empty cup. She never gives from a place of depletion. And she never, ever gives away her dignity. This matters because the way you love will shape your entire life. It will affect your peace. It will affect your health. It will affect the example you set for your children and the younger women watching you. It will determine whether your relationships lift you higher or slowly drain you of your light. And you deserve to know the difference. So today, I want to share with you 7 rules that high-value women never break. Not when they're single. Not when they're in a relationship. And especially not when they're deeply in love. These aren't arbitrary rules. They're not about playing games or being difficult. They're about protecting what matters most, your peace, your dignity, and your sense of self. By the end of this video, you will have a clear picture of what it looks like to love fully without losing yourself. You'll understand why certain boundaries are non-negotiable, and you'll walk away with practical shifts you can make in your own life, starting today. Whether you're single and preparing for love, in a relationship and wanting to strengthen it, healing from heartbreak, or rebuilding your life after a difficult chapter, this message is for you. Let's begin. Ral Nember Oni, she never abandons herself to keep someone else. Let me start with the most important rule of all. The foundation everything else is built upon. A high-value woman never abandons herself. Not for love, not for approval, not for peace. Not for anything. What do I mean by abandoning yourself? I mean ignoring your own needs so consistently that you forget you have them. I mean silencing your voice so often that you forget what it sounds like. I mean putting everyone else's comfort above your own well-being until you become invisible in your own life. Why does this matter so much? Because you cannot pour from an empty cup. This isn't just a nice saying, it's a law of nature. If you continuously give without replenishing, you will run dry. And when you run dry, you have nothing left, not for others, and certainly not for yourself. But there's something even deeper here. When you abandon yourself, you're sending a message. Not just to others, but to yourself. You're telling yourself that you don't matter. That your needs aren't important. That your happiness comes last. And when you believe this about yourself, you will attract people who believe it too. Let me give you an example. Imagine a woman, let's call her Amara. She's 42, successful in her career, respected by her colleagues. But in her marriage, she's a different person. She never speaks up when something bothers her. She handles everything, the house, the children, the emotional labor, while her husband focuses on his own interests. When she's tired, she pushes through. When she's irked, she stays quiet. She's abandoned herself so completely that she doesn't even recognize it anymore. One day, her teenage daughter comes to her with a problem. A boy at school is treating her poorly, and she's not sure what to do. And Amara finds herself giving advice she doesn't follow. Never let anyone treat you like you don't matter. Speak up for yourself. And in that moment, something shifts. She realizes she can't teach her daughter self-respect if she doesn't model it herself. This is the power of staying connected to yourself. It affects everyone around you. So what can you do? First, start paying attention to your own needs again. This sounds simple, but for many women, it's revolutionary. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Not what does everyone else need. What do I need? Start small. Maybe you need 10 minutes of quiet. Maybe you need to eat something nourishing. Maybe you need to say no to something that's draining you. Second, practice speaking your truth in small moments. You don't have to start with the biggest, scariest conversation. Start with small preferences. I'd rather go to this restaurant. I need a moment before we continue this discussion. I'm not comfortable with that. These small moments of truth, telling build the muscle for bigger ones. Third, schedule time for yourself that is non-negotiable, not leftover time. Not if everything else is done time, real protected time. This isn't selfish. This is survival. This is how you stay connected to who you are. A high-value woman knows that the most important relationship she will ever have is the one with herself, and she protects that relationship fiercely. RTW, she never tolerates disrespect, even from someone she loves. This is where things get real. A high-value woman does not tolerate disrespect, not from strangers, not from colleagues, and especially not from the people she loves. Now, I want to be very clear about what disrespect means. I'm not talking about the occasional disagreement. I'm not talking about someone having a bad day and being a little short with you. That's human. That's normal. That's something we can extend grace for. I'm talking about patterns. I'm talking about behaviors that consistently make you feel small, dismissed, unimportant, or unsafe. I'm talking about someone repeatedly crossing lines that you've already communicated. Why is this rule so crucial? Because respect is the foundation of love. Without respect, love cannot exist. It might look like love. It might feel like love in certain moments. But if someone doesn't respect you, they cannot truly love you. They're loving an idea of you, a version of you that serves them. Not the real, whole, complete you. And here's something important. Tolerating disrespect doesn't make you a patient, understanding partner. It makes you a partner who is slowly losing herself. Every time you accept treatment that's beneath your dignity, you chip away at your own self-worth. And over time, those chips add up to cracks. And those cracks can shatter you. Let me share a scenario. Consider a woman named Grace. She's 38, deeply in love with her partner of 5 years. He's charming, successful, and when things are good, they're wonderful. But when he's stressed, he becomes dismissive. He interrupts her. He makes jokes at her expense in front of friends. He rolls his eyes when she shares her feelings. At first, she made excuses. He's under pressure at work. He doesn't mean it. This is just how he handles stress. But one day, Grace paid attention to how she felt after their interactions. She noticed she felt small. She felt like her voice didn't matter. She felt like she was always walking on eggshells. And she made a choice. She chose herself. She had a calm, clear conversation. I love you. I want to be with you. But I will not accept being spoken to dismissively. I will not accept being made fun of. This is not a negotiation. This is a boundary. What happened next wasn't easy. There was resistance. There were difficult conversations. But because she was clear and consistent, change became possible. And more importantly, regardless of whether he changed, she had already changed. She had reclaimed her dignity. So what can you do? First, get clear on what respect means to you. What behaviors are absolutely unacceptable? What treatment is beneath your dignity? Know your non-negotiables before you're in an emotional situation. Second, when disrespect happens, address it calmly but clearly. You don't need to yell. You don't need to threaten. You simply need to name it. That felt disrespectful. I don't accept being spoken to that way. Let's try this conversation again with more respect. Third, watch for patterns, not just incidents. Anyone can have a bad moment, but patterns reveal character. If the same disrespectful behavior keeps happening despite your clear communication, that tells you something important. Fourth, be willing to walk away. This is hard. This is perhaps the hardest thing. But a high-value woman knows that she would rather be alone with her dignity than partnered with someone who diminishes her. Loneliness is temporary. Loss of self-respect has lasting consequences. Remember this, the way you allow people to treat you is the standard you set for your life. Set that standard high. Ra'al nami mbr tare, she never makes herself smaller to make someone else more comfortable. This rule goes deep. It touches something that many women have experienced, but might not have the words for. A high-value woman never shrinks herself. She doesn't dim her light. She doesn't pretend to be less intelligent, less successful, less capable, less ambitious, or less anything to make someone else feel more comfortable. Why do women do this? Why do we sometimes make ourselves smaller? Often, it's because we've been taught, directly or indirectly, that a woman who shines too brightly makes others uncomfortable. That being too much of anything is threatening. That if we want love, we need to dial back parts of who we are. This is one of the most damaging lies we've been told. Here's the truth. The right person will never be intimidated by your light. The right person will celebrate it. The right person will stand next to you and admire your shine, not try to dim it. Anyone who needs you to be less so they can feel like more is not the right person. And here's what happens when you shrink yourself. At first, it might feel like harmony, less conflict, more approval. But over time, that shrinking creates resentment. It creates disconnection from your true self. It creates a relationship built on a false version of you. And that relationship can never truly satisfy you because the person they love isn't really you. It's the smaller, edited, acceptable version of you. Let me tell you about a woman I'll call Diana. Diana is 45, brilliant, the CEO of her own company. She's worked incredibly hard to build her career. But in her romantic relationships, she always held back. She didn't talk about her achievements too much. She let men lead conversations even when she had more expertise. She dressed down. She played small. And her relationships kept failing. Not because she was too successful, but because she was attracting people who wanted the small version of her. And she could only keep up that act for so long before the real Diana started to emerge. And when she did, those partners couldn't handle it. Everything changed when Diana made a decision. She decided to show up as her full self from the very beginning. No apologies, no dimming, no shrinking. It meant some people weren't interested. It meant some were intimidated. But it also meant that when she finally met her partner, he fell in love with the real Diana, the brilliant, ambitious, accomplished Diana, and their relationship was built on truth, not pretense. So what can you do? First, notice when you're shrinking. Pay attention to moments when you hold back, when you minimize your achievements, when you pretend not to know something you know, when you stay quiet to keep the peace. Just notice it. Awareness is the first step. Second, practice taking up space. Speak in complete sentences without apologizing. Share your opinions. Let people see your intelligence, your ambition, your accomplishments. This isn't bragging. This is existing fully. Third, surround yourself with people who celebrate your fullness. This includes friends, family, and romantic partners. Pay attention to how people respond when you shine. Do they celebrate you, or do they seem uncomfortable? That response tells you everything you need to know. Fourth, remind yourself of this truth. You were not put on this earth to make yourself small. You were put here to grow, to flourish, to become the fullest expression of who you are. Anyone who asks you to be less is not worthy of you. A high-value woman knows that her light is a gift, and she never lets anyone convince her otherwise. Rule number 4, she never ignores her intuition. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a feeling, a knowing, that something wasn't right? Maybe you couldn't explain it. Maybe there was no logical evidence. But something inside you just knew. That's your intuition. And a high-value woman never ignores it. Why is intuition so important? Because your intuition is your inner guidance system. It's the result of years of experience, observation, and wisdom that your conscious mind can't always access. It's your soul speaking to you. It's your inner queen warning you. And here's the thing. Your intuition is almost never wrong. It might not always be right about the specific details. But if something feels off, something usually is off. If someone feels untrustworthy, they usually are. If a situation feels unsafe, it usually isn't safe. The problem is that many women have been trained to ignore their intuition. We've been told we're being dramatic, we're being paranoid, we're overreacting, we're too emotional. We've been gaslit so many times that we started gaslighting ourselves. And this can have devastating consequences. When you ignore your intuition in relationships, you stay longer than you should. You trust people who prove themselves untrustworthy. You walk into situations that your gut told you to avoid. You lose precious time and peace because you didn't listen to yourself. Let me share an example. There's a woman named Sophia. She met a man who seemed perfect on paper. Charming, successful, attentive. Everyone loved him. Her friends said she was lucky. Her family was impressed. But Sophia had a feeling, something she couldn't quite name. A subtle unease when she was with him. A sense that something was being hidden. At first, she dismissed it. She told herself she was being paranoid. She was self-sabotaging. She'd been hurt before and was just being overly cautious. 6 months into the relationship, she discovered he had been lying about significant parts of his life. He was in debt. He had a pattern of deception. Everything her intuition had been whispering was true. Sophia learned an important lesson. Her intuition wasn't paranoia, it was protection. Now she treats her intuition as sacred. She doesn't need to justify it to anyone. If something feels wrong, she pays attention. Period. So what can you do? First, start listening to your body. Your intuition often speaks through physical sensations. A tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, a feeling of heaviness. These are signals. Pay attention to them. Second, create space for quiet. Intuition speaks softly. If your life is full of noise, distraction, and busyness, you won't hear it. Make time for silence, reflection, walks in nature. Whatever helps you tune in. Third, trust yourself even when you can't explain why. You don't need evidence to feel what you feel. You don't need permission to trust your gut. If something feels off, honor that feeling. Fourth, reflect on past experiences. Think about times when you ignored your intuition. What happened? Now think about times when you trusted it. What happened? This exercise will strengthen your faith in your inner guidance. A high-value woman knows that her intuition is a gift. She doesn't argue with it. She doesn't dismiss it. She listens. And she acts accordingly. Ryle MBR5E, she never loses her identity in a relationship. This is something that happens so gradually, you might not even notice it. You meet someone. You fall in love. You start spending more time together. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the things that made you uniquely, you start to